Well, let's do the final assembly on our kit guitar. We're getting close. We built the box, we got the box finished, we worked on the neck, we got the neck attached. Now we're just ready to go ahead and put the rest of the components on. So let's talk a little bit about that. The first thing is, again, as we have in the kit, you saw we have the harness with the pickup. These are already, again, pre-soldered, so you don't have to worry about soldering them. It's all ready to go, ready to be installed. We have the control plate. We ship the control plate unpainted. You can paint it, do whatever you want with it. I painted it black to go with this green. I think it looks pretty well. And oh, by the way, in between videos, I went ahead and put the protective corners on here because that's kind of a timely or time-consuming process. So I put all the corners on. We provide the screws and the corners. Pretty easy. Put them on there, drill the holes, tighten the screws in. Makes it pretty rigid and pretty rugged, so it can bounce on the side. If it wasn't for the protective corners, obviously the corners would get damaged. That might be okay, and that might be what you want, but we go ahead and put them on there. It looks pretty good. So again, we're ready to install the electronic components, the pickup, and get pretty close to being done. The last step will be to put the strings on it, tune it up, and make sure everything is fine. So let's take a look at it. Here's one big tip. If you're going to build a lot of these kinds of instruments, get in the habit of testing everything before you go and install it. So again, we have these harnesses with the pickups. They've been tested before we shipped them to you. But let's make sure that it's going to work correctly. So what I have is I have my amp turned on. I've got the jack here and the plug. I'm going to go ahead and put it in there. Then I'm going to use one of the tuning forks. We sell this tuning fork. It's kind of cool. Whoop. Yeah, I'm getting really good sound out of this pickup, and I've already tested it, so I know the volume and the tone work. So we're good to go. So we've got this tested. Hopefully we won't have any problems when we go to install it, and everything should work out well. Okay, so we got the, again, the control plate. If you look at the control plate, there's 3 holes, and 2 are the same size, and one's just a little bit bigger. That is the jack. That's where the jack's going to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the jack through there. I've already taken the washer and the nut off of there, so we're going to go ahead and put that back on there. Get that screwed in place. Now I know that this takes another 12 metric wrench or socket, but it'll also work with a 1/2 inch if you're using that. So I got a 1/2 inch here, so I'm going to go ahead and snug it up. Got that nice and snug, and I'm good to go. So now I've got the jack installed. The next one is to go ahead and put the tone in, and the tone control is the one that has the little green capacitor on it. That's how you tell which one is the tone. That's what adjusts the tone. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. There's a nut that you already have to put on there, kind of for the back side. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to adjust that nut so that when we put the pickup or put the pot through, we basically only see enough for another nut on this side. So you have to kind of fiddle with it a lot, get it to the right depth, maybe just a little bit more. I'm pretty happy with that. Go ahead and put a washer on this side and get one of your nuts and go ahead and put it on there and tighten it up. Now we're back. Now we're down to 11. So we need 11 millimeter. I don't have a wrench, but I do have a socket. So we'll go ahead and tighten that up, and that looks pretty good. I want to make sure that I'm looking here that I don't have components touching components. I don't want to be bumping against each other. Then the last one to install is the volume pot. That's where a lot of things connect. That's where you'll have the ground wire. That's where the pickup will be connected. So we go ahead and we install that. Again, we got the nut. We're going to back it off a little bit, put it through. That looks pretty good. Put a washer on there. Grab a nut. Get that lined up. That looks pretty good. Again, that's 11. When I tighten it up, make sure there's no interference. It looks pretty good. Now we're ready to install this in the box. One of the first things we want to do is, again, on this kit, if you'll remember, we had all of these marking holes. We came in and just touched where all of these components have to be lined up. So we kind of got a pilot there. So what you need to do is take a drill, again with a 16th inch bit, and go around and finish drilling through. Okay, so we have everything drilled, we're ready to go. Now it's time to install these components. The first thing you need to do is go ahead and stick the pickup in there. You know, this is one of our micro pups. We've gone ahead and installed it, glued it into its cover. So we're going to go ahead and just stick that in there, and we'll fish it up through the other end in a moment. The next thing we have to do is we have to get the ground wire to come up underneath the bridge. So it would be easy. You can see the hole from this side that the slot we made. We could put the wire that way, but we really need the wire to come this way. So what we have is I just created this little wire loop. I actually took a guitar string, snipped it off, bent it in half, and what I do is I come from the inside and I push it out, and you'll see it appear in the cavity down here. You can actually see it appearing in the cavity. You can see it'll actually come through, and you can see it there. Then what you need to do is simply take the ground wire, the black ground wire. It's a longer wire, probably about 10 inches long, comes off the back of the pop, and then we're just going to feed that through, say an inch or two. And then we're going to take this, we're going to pull it through, and now we have the ground wire coming through the opening where we need it. So now we've got the pickup stuffed in there, we've got the ground wire, and let's carefully just place all the other wires in there. Again, we want the jack towards the back. It's a little bit of a tight fit, a little bit of a snug fit. Don't force it or anything. Make sure the wires are in there, tuck it into place, and you're good to go. And then we have 2 screws. Because I believe this is going to work, I'm going to go ahead and put the screws in. Got that? So now I have the control plate in place. I've screwed that in, got the ground wire here. Now what we have to do is find our pickup. We got the pickup back through the back hole, and what we simply want to do is we want to feed it through that slot that we made in the front. And you can actually see where we just pushed it through. So we push the pickup through. Again, go ahead and turn it around, get it positioned. We have those two holes there ready to go. We're going to grab a couple of screws. Grab the screws that came with that. Alright, so now we have the pickup in place, the control plate in place. The last thing to do is go ahead and put the bridge on. Again, like we did up here on the neck, we have this extra shim spacer. We're going to use that as well underneath. So we go ahead and feed the wire through, again the ground wire. And by the way, the ground wire is kind of sticking out too far, so we can kind of feed some of it back in the hole. We don't need all of that. We do need to keep about 1.5 inches of it stripped. That's critical. So you'll need to take a wire stripper and just strip back about 1.5 inches. So then we put it through the hole, again shoving it down in there, and we're going to lay we have the bridge. In the screw pack you'll see 4 screws, and you'll see a little hex key. That's really kind of critical. So we're going to go ahead and put this in. Again, we already have the holes pre-drilled. Lay the string on top. Lay the string on top so it grounds. Now the whole bridge is grounded, and as the bridge is grounded, so will the strings. So we go ahead, put in a couple of screws. I could probably use a little bit bigger bit. A little bit bigger bit than the number 1 on those screws. They seem to be hopping a little bit. Now you remember in the center of that body where we had that big chunk of wood, that's what we're biting into, which is really critical and really helpful because this is making the bridge really solid. So that's a really good thing. So we'll go ahead. Now we've got those screws in. All right. Well, that was pretty fast. We installed the bridge. We installed the pickup. We installed, well, that was the control plate, and the bridge and the pickup are all installed, and we're ready to go. A couple of more things, then we're going to be ready to string it. We have a couple of knobs. We can go ahead and put the knobs on. What I like to do on the knobs, especially on these, because on these knobs you'll see there's a little dimple there. I turn the volume and the tone pot all the way counterclockwise, and then I go ahead and put the knob on with the little dimple pointing straight up. Then with the wrench that we provide, the little hex wrench, tighten it up. And boy, we're good to go. See if they got range. Sometimes you rub a little bit, you need to back them off a little bit, but these seem to be working pretty well. So what I'm going to do is, got everything together, don't think anything's changed, but let's go ahead and check it one more time, so make sure it still works. Volume works fine, tone works fine, everything works fine on here. So we're really kind of good to go. We're getting close. One last thing. As we put those washers and we put those that nut on there and we tighten it down, we got a pretty solid connection. Over time, that wood that was somewhat resilient is now starting to give way. So what we need to do is we need to probably go back in and tighten it up one more time just to make sure before we close up the cover. So I'm going to go ahead and put my wrench on there and tighten it up a little bit more. So we've got a really solid neck now. The neck is solid, everything's good to go. Kind of the last step before stringing is to install the plug on the back side, the closure plate. If you remember on the back side, obviously we have a hole there. It allowed us to install the neck. It allowed us to install the pickup. Really kind of handy. But now we need to kind of close it up. So in the kit, we provide you this little plug, a little plate to cover that up. It's 3 inches in diameter. The hole's about 2.5 inches in diameter. So what we need to do is go ahead and put that on. Kind of line it up. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. I'm not going to drill holes. I'm going to go ahead and use these screws because they're real nice and sharp. And I'm going to just go ahead and install it. Make sure it's nice and square. Pretty happy with the way that looks. Now I could have, staying with the color scheme of the guitar, I could have painted that black, and I have painted them black. They work well. But on this one, I just took some clear coat and I sprayed some clear coat. And what I'm going to say is I like the contrast and that looks good. So now, basically, we are ready to go. The only thing we have to do is string it, adjust it, and tune it, and we've got a complete build. So stay tuned, we'll come back and that'll be the next video. Thanks.